Hello, everybody. In the movie Children of Men, has everybody seen that? I'm not going to spoil it. I'm talking about my reaction to it. Okay, no spoilers. There's an interesting idea that's very relevant to today. This is just a tiny, tiny part of the movie. Okay, brilliant movie. Go watch it. Humans stopped being able to make babies, so all new art and music stopped. The will to create died, along with the public's desire to look at new art, read books or music. Are we seeing this effect today? It's so interesting. With everything as an IP. I remember I first got on the internet with my art, and it was like, is everyone just doing fan art? Everyone's just into fan art. Huh. I'll explain a dream that I had last night. I was walking around in this big public building at night when everybody was gone and things should be locked up, but I saw these turning racks on wheels, those, and they have all their metal kind of wire, and they're usually painted black, and you hold books inside of them, and they used to be at all stores. I saw these really great comic books in them, and I was astounded and really surprised when they left all these expensive books unattended. I kind of felt like stealing one, but I was this is going to be good, right? It was just a dream, but I was like, it's good actually when you don't do the wrong thing. It's in a dream. That's good. Why weren't they locking them up though? Well, they leave them out there, and they know people could walk around in here freely. Why weren't they worried that people will steal them? When I woke up, I analyzed the dream, and it was a pretty easy one to figure out. The dream was telling me not to stress out about selling your art or trying to get people interested, because I don't want to sound really gloomy, but it's not over. But like a small fringe, right? It's not over. We could be alive, and, thriving and full of imagination and love. Okay, but for the general population, it's over. The time when people seek new ideas is over. After watching the movie Children of Men, years ago, I played with the thought experiment of the question: if everyone in the whole world died and I was the only one alive, or my wife and my kids, I don't know. It's a thought experiment, so I'm not going to think of everything. Well, even if my wife died and my kids are dead, what are you going to do? Would I still create art? But yeah, that's a rabbit hole, though. That's not what I'm talking about. The question is, would I still create art? Would I still draw? Would I still write a story? My greatest dream is to entertain people. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm not talking right now, but with my art, with my comic books, and my musical comics. I try to entertain people with beauty, art, if you can call what I do music. It's not really music, it's bartery, and you get a poem and you sing in it, and sometimes it's a song, and sometimes I'm just singing like the words, right? Okay, but anyway, that's a rabbit hole too. I don't want to get off on tangent. The question is, would I still create? And the answer was always yes. I pondered and contemplated this question, and the answer was always yes. And it still is. That's what my dream was telling me. I want other people to take my art like they love food, but if they don't take it, I'm still going to eat. not going to just like, okay, I'm going to eat crackers for the rest of my life. No, I'll bake a cherry pie. I'll still do that, If you bake a cherry pie and give someone a piece of cherry pie, they look at the beauty of the pie and they gobble the tasty snack. They love it. Okay, they don't say, you think you're better than me, eh? You think you're better because you can bake a cherry pie? Well, I can bake just as good of a pie as you. Actually, I have known people like that. I know my dad when he made like these wonderful pierogies. He figured out like just how to make them better, like the kind of the Ukrainian secret of making the best pierogies. Where he made them, and my aunt was mad at him, just mad, furious. And I didn't understand it back then. I didn't understand, like, why would you be mad because somebody else could make pierogies as good as your pierogies? Like, it didn't make sense at the time to me, okay? I draw on the public all the time, okay? You want me to finish the story about my dad and my aunt, but you'll guess why she was mad. It's envy. It's envy, okay? It's envy and territoriality, right? It's anyway. I draw in the public all the time. I have for decades and decades and decades. I'm 1,000 years old. I draw in the public because I draw people, real people that breathe and they have souls. I'm not copying photos. Photos don't have souls. Photos don't breathe. Photos are a projection from a machine. Okay, I'm not going to draw that. I can't control these people that I draw or tell them to stay still. So I can't be a control freak around them, right? It's like it's good practice not being a control freak, right? I imagine I feel their souls. I don't know if I do feel their souls or if it's just my imagination. I don't know, but as far as that goes, I know I've healed so many of my own psychological hang-ups by projecting these people onto my page from my mind. For decades, I've done this, decades. Decades and decades. I got better and better, of course, and I always want to make something people might love, right? But that urge didn't come until way later. It's only when you get like so much better, it's like, hey, I think I could make something people might love. But then print died. It's over. That whole kind of thing is like, it's fringy now. It's a fringe. Okay, and I'm okay with that. And through the years, the decades, I started drawing in the late 80s, in the 90s, and the first decade of this millennium. I drew people in the public. I just walk up to people and draw them, trying to secretly, people, don't try to. You can't see me. And, some people would see me, and I wouldn't want to get noticed because I want to finish my drawing, right? And I want to draw real people. But when they did notice me, my rule is this is a hard, fast rule, because if I'm in the public and I'm invading people, it's not invading people's privacy to look at them. I don't think so. But in some cultures it is. Okay, in some cultures it's like a mind crime. My rule was to be friendly and talk as much as they want to talk. They own me for the period of time that I'm there, because it's a good trade-off, right? The connection to people. That's what it's all about, really. People were interested. I mean, you don't connect to a photo when you're drawing a photo. You're not connecting to that person. You're connecting to the machine. But people were interested and friendly, and they would say, "Let me see those other drawings. Can I please?" And sometimes they'd say like, "Oh boy, like sorry, because it's like looks private and stuff like that." And, no problem. I don't have secrets. I think secrets are evil. I learned that from Twin Peaks. Dale Cooper, he said to Audrey, Audrey said she had so many secrets, and he said, "Don't have secrets, Audrey. and yeah, secrets are very damaging and evil to hold. And I always remembered that because Dale Cooper was such a wonderful hero, wasn't he? But anyway, that's another tangent. The internet took over. It took over people's minds, and people slowly changed. And there's that, proverbial tale about you put a frog in boiling water and the frog jumps out, because the frog notices right away. But if you put the frog in cold water and then you boil it, the frog doesn't jump out. He just lets himself be boiled to death because he doesn't notice it. It's too gradual. And that's what's happened to people. But when you draw in public, you notice, and nobody else is drawing in public, so they don't notice. It's not that I'm smarter than anybody, it's just that I do this weird, what could be looked at as a bizarre psychological experiment on people. And I notice it, okay, the change, because the curious and interested reaction changed into complete disinterest, or this strange attitude like the example I gave about the pie or my aunt, and my dad's pierogies. Like, why not be happy for my dad? Why not eat those pierogies and say, wow, your pierogies are just as good as my pierogies? People interpret it as me saying I'm smarter and superior to them. I'll send my art to people, like even friends, and they'll be like, oh, what, you think you're better than me? And it's like, no, I'm trying to give you a piece of cherry pie. This is Canada. So maybe I'm wrong about your neighborhood, but in Canada you can swim in envy and derision here, but people are nice. I'm not saying people aren't nice. Nice isn't the same as warm or kind or curious. Maybe your town isn't like Canada. I was in Budapest, and I found the people were different there, and they were like a little bit more like pre-internet people. Like Canada, it's really cold and everybody's cooped up and they're just on it more. And maybe like there are other places where people just say, I can do that to myself, I'm not saying everybody, maybe your town is wonderful. Okay. I'm just talking about my own walk in my own country. Okay. And I'm assuming that this is happening kind of everywhere. Okay. But I'm not saying that there aren't wonderful little pockets in this world that still exist. Okay. I only get this decades ago I used to get this reaction from other artists, just like my aunt, pierogi maker, getting mad at my dad for figuring out the secret of making great pierogies. They would always make sure to tell me, your work isn't art. You realize your work isn't art. And it's, what a weird thing to say, hey? Your work isn't art. And what is it? It's commercial illustration, which is funny because like they would even say that after print died, and it's like, well, illustrators aren't making money. It's like commercial illustration. No, it's not art. And I'd be polite. I'd say, okay, and I don't consider myself an artist now, because I've been told so many times I'm not an artist, and that's okay. I don't care. It's a word. Words aren't reality. People should know this. Words are just they're nothing. They're just anyway. That's an identity argument that's for another video. It's true that I aspire to entertain, and I'm also trying to communicate ideas through beauty. So maybe it isn't art. Art doesn't communicate. Art doesn't tell a story. I've been told that. I was never allowed in their club, and it never bothered me. But an aside, I remember like going to an art party. Like it has happened a few times, and I'd meet somebody and they'd get interested. And I've been told that artists don't do art. and that it's a lifestyle. So what is an artist? Okay, so when these people say you're not an artist, it's like, okay, I guess so. I don't know artists. I actually don't know any artists. I'm like a guy that doesn't, I don't, yeah. Anyway, I think my wife might have believed I was exaggerating, but she saw it too. Like, it's like I meet an artist, and if they see my paintings or my art, it's like my illustration, they just blurt it out. This isn't art. They just want me to make sure that I know it's not art. And it's okay, great, great. I'm an illustrator, and I write stories. I can't call myself an author. I can't call myself an artist, so I'll call myself an illustrator that writes stories. It's like a janitor's now, a maintenance engineer. Anyway, of course, this gatekeeping was envy. This is envy and projection. Gatekeeping isn't always envy and projection. Sometimes it's keeping out true evil. Sure, okay, I'm not saying all gatekeeping is envy and projection. But it was also anti-populist sentiment. My art is populist in nature because anybody can look at it and understand it. I mean, I might have some abstract ideas that kind of like you have to like look at twice, but it's populist art. It's made to be seen and understood exactly what it is. It's just because it's not popular, it doesn't mean it's not populist. I think because of the same reason movie studios won't produce new ideas. It's all the same. It's like the Children of Men back again, right? Are we living in Children of Men? But think of Children of Men as a metaphor, okay? It's not because writers can't write anymore. I know there are writers that can write. It's because studios believe it's the public can't grow or take in new ideas. And it's extremely ironic because you'll have people that really only want to look at like established IPs and they'll say, they don't make anything new anymore. It's like I've talked to these people and I'll tell them all these like really cool movies and cool things and they won't watch it. I'll talk to them, did you see it? And they never saw it. They'll just start complaining, Star Wars isn't as good anymore, man. Why can't they make new Star Wars? Why can't they fire Kathleen Kennedy and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But it's like, you could tell them like a list of things like this really awesome and they won't look at it. So it's the studios know these people and they know how people tick. They've figured it out. Because they're in the business of money, not art. So we have endless reboots and sequels or pastiche and retro, copying the ideas that are already implanted. They're implanted in everybody's heads. And they're just like, it's a comfort thing. It's like, we're going to like rub that little comfort part in your head again. And you could feel good, right? I know there are all sorts of creative and imaginative people stuck in IP jail, churning out over and over what our culture has already produced. And they have these new ideas and they have all these interesting things in their heads, but they have to put food on the table. So they just churn it out. I'm not calling them sellouts or anything. It's, you got to have your cherry pie and pierogies on your table, right? Sometimes something new breaks through, but only if it's pushed and promoted by massive and expensive marketing campaigns. I really loved Pluribus, White Lotus, and the Chair Company, for instance. That's just a little list on the top of my head. We still have lots of brilliant people. I'm not saying that we don't have that. But these people are muzzled. Our culture has stagnated and is dying of ennui. We're living in the Children of Men right now. But the sterilized people is only a metaphor. It's the human mind that is sterilized by too much soulless entertainment. AI seems to be the final brick in the wall. I have many solutions. One solution is that people reject all AI, CGI, and plastic surgeric actors and return to the 1930s technology for movies. They used to have one studio would have I don't know, 80 mad artists, and you could look at an old Tarzan movie of the 30s, and you might think you're seeing like Tarzan walking in the jungle, but 1/3 or 1/4 of the corner it's of the painting is painting. The screen is just a painting, and then the top corner is painting, and like it's like Tarzan's walking through a painting, and there's only part of it that's quote unquote real, and you could see the wind blowing the leaves a little bit, and Tarzan's walking through a painting. Props. Let's have real props. Like, forget this CGI mind pollution. Let's see real props and set design and photography. It's photography now. It's like just watch the 30s and 40s movies, and you'll see what I mean. Sadly, I don't think that's going to happen unless people embrace this authenticity movement that I'm declaring right now. More videos and ideas on that later. One solution is not enough. We got to really have a game plan. We can't just people will, they were saying that, people search for it. No, they won't. No, they won't. I was in the 90s, and the whole thing was like people want it to look professional. They don't want to see the human touch, okay? It's the way humans are, okay? We need to actually deliberately declare authenticity to be our value. That's it. Please help me save the human imagination. Be part of this. We could all do this. I beg of every listener, all four of you. In any case, if we're marching into the land of the dead imaginations, maybe we can be a small fringe that still grows and thrives, while the rest of our species become manifestations of H.G. Wells' Morlocks. I mean, what are the Morlocks? Like people say, oh, AI can do all art. No, they can't. No, they can't. They can't do the human element. And people have become immune. They don't even recognize the human element because they don't look for it. They've lost the feeling or the need or the ability to recognize authenticity. I used to in the 90s, people used to draw, and people, and I could talk to people that draw, and we could look at a picture and we could tell, and I could still tell, but we could tell if the artist was using a photograph, or we could tell, and I think that's completely lost on people now. Okay, this is authenticity, people. This is authenticity. Okay, I miss my grandparents and a lot of the greatest generation. The greatest generation, they lived through the Depression and those days. Okay, their imaginations were more alive. So many people think we're superior to them. I remember my boomer parents and their friends. They would always look at the greatest generation people, my grandparents and all that, and they'd giggle and laugh about them, and they were cute. They were cute. They weren't cute. They knew things you don't know. They have perceptions you don't know. Okay, watch 30s movies. Really, you'll get into their mind zone a little bit. They could sit alone in a room and entertain themselves without technology. Okay, I remember. Well, anyway, I won't go on a tangent. Don't doom scroll. That's the worst. That's like being a crack addict. Okay, it is. Don't do it. Okay, my dad always used to say, he was addicted to food, and he used to say, addictions are all the same. You could be addicted to anything. Okay, addictions aren't aren't necessarily what you're addicted to. People will say pot's not addictive, and oh boy, it depends if you have that addictive personality. Okay? Reject reboots. Reject them. Reject the remakes and the sequels. Think of them as insults to you and your intelligence. You don't need your smooth brain comforted by repetition of what you already know. Reject AI and CGI. Reject plastic surgery. It's creepy. I mean, I look at Michelle Pfeiffer. She used to be so beautiful. I used to think she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And now she's like a frozen-faced version of that young woman. And I wanted to see her grow old. I want to see, like, what does a beautiful woman like that look like when she's 80? I want to see that. And that's denied from all of us. I don't want to insult her too much. She's never going to hear this, but it's vampire. It's like a vampire, right? Anyway, she was so beautiful. My gosh. Demand new ideas to feed the imagination of our sleeping species. Read old novels. Listen to 1930s music. There's no tone control. Real people. Real voices. And the funny thing is, it's before American Idol made everybody think music is a sport. And you have people singing, and they have voices just like your neighbor's voice, just like your voice, just like my voice. People listen to my music and they say, ugh, that's crappy, you can't sing. You can sing. My neighbor can sing. I can sing. We can all sing, but we've been brainwashed into thinking that it's a sport. It's not a sport. What is Fred and Ginger movies? I always say that. I'm kind of obsessed with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And so when I see people that are depressed, I try to get them to watch Fred and Ginger movies. I don't know if anybody's ever listened to me, but really, like, listen to this. It's Fred and Ginger movies. They're so good. There's this joy on the screen. It's just anyway, tangent. Anyway, goodbye. Goodbye, dear listeners and watchers. Until next time. You can look below for the links to my comic books and children's book. Don't buy the computer one, really, even though I have it offered. I try to put it as expensive as it gets, but they won't let me put it more expensive. Like, I'd put it for $100 or something. I only do it so people could look at, like, they have this look at this feature where you can look inside the book and see, oh, this is what it is. Okay, I know if I'm going to like this or not like this on some level. I only do it for that. Like, but I would put it for $100 so that people just buy the paper instead. Paper's more real. El Shaddai 2 is my best book, okay? But I have better ones. I have better stuff. I just haven't been publishing them. Snow White's even better. I'm going to publish that really, really soon. Really soon for all four of you. You could read it. We're not living in the children of men if you reject it, but you have to have a game plan. And I watch movies, I watch TV. I'm not saying don't do any of that. Just start to look at a commercial and say, that's not real. We were watching this show today, my wife and I, and it's just I was watching these people in the commercial, and it's like, that's not a real person. I don't want to lose the ability and not be able to recognize if I'm seeing an AI person or not an AI person. That's not a real person. Stay away from those stupid AI videos. Like, they're funny. I remember watching a whole bunch of them, and they're really kind of, it's kind of freeing because it's like these jokers that are kind of funny, and they write these skits and they have them, and it's sort of, wow, we haven't seen humor since 2012. Wow. But then I watched it and I felt kind of like eerie after it. I felt it's like I don't know, stay away from them. Don't become immune to seeing non-humans pretending to be humans. It's still a beautiful world. Love is still alive if you open your eyes. Goodbye.